Welcome back to the Upside Podcast in this first live episode here with the Coaches for Action Coalition. A special thank you to Marquette's Dwayne Killings, Providence's Ivan Thomas, Villanova's Kyle Neptune, and UConn's Kamani Young. We have seen it's been a period of growth, not just in college basketball, but around the country for the last few weeks. And in college basketball specifically, we've seen a variety of different teams come together and advocate conversation, empathy, and action. But this is really unique because the Big East's membership, all 21 minority assistant coaches, came together to form this coalition, making it, as far as I know, the first of its kind. And so we thought that deserved this very unique platform for our first live episode. So thank you all for what you're doing and for joining us here this evening.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Adam.
Absolutely, Adam. Thanks for having us.
So I want to go back to the very beginning because I think this is, well, the very beginning is already my first blunder of the night. So we'll keep that going. But it was about 3.5 weeks ago now where George Floyd was murdered in Minnesota. Same weekend was the Amy Cooper incident in New York. I think everybody, I've written about this. I think everybody had, different reactions to what was going on. I know my personal one was not again and just an innate sense of sadness, but let's face it, I'm white. So I want to start with how you guys felt in those hours and days after Memorial Day weekend and how that led to where we are now.
Yeah, for me personally, I thought there was a level of confusion. What was going on in the world? How do you process it? What to make of the conversations you're having with your friends, your neighbors, your family, what it meant for my kids. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and you're processing all this information that's coming to you. And at the same time, you're trying to download it. And then you're thinking about your family. As coaches, you're thinking about your players. What do you do with that? And people are asking you questions. And, I honestly lean on two guys on this call who are the best of my friends, and Kamani Young at UConn and Kyle Neptune at Villanova. We would talk about, what's going on in Philadelphia, what's going on in Connecticut, New York, what's going on here in Milwaukee. And I think we were all motivated to insert ourselves into the conversations, but we didn't want to just do something that made people aware. We wanted to be impactful, and we wanted to represent all the people I just mentioned, the people in our communities, the players that we coach. So, we said, why don't we just go to all the guys that do what we do in our league? I think one of the biggest things for our league is, we operate in the shadows of John Thompson. I think what he did years ago was, he stood for change. He stood for impacting people and communities and creating opportunities. And I think that's so important for our conference. So what we decided to do is get everybody on the call and try to figure out the direction that we could go to not only raise awareness, but impact people, impact communities, impact our players, stand for something. And the best feeling for me personally, at the end of May, when we got on that call on that Sunday, was seeing everybody pop into that Zoom call. And you knew right away guys had passion for what we were thinking about doing.
But how did that logistically take shape? Because I think there were a lot of people that were motivated to act, but not a lot of groups that were able to do so with this type of organization. So I guess I will pose this question to Coach Thomas, and if you can talk to us about just how it came to fruition and what it looked like to get that initial spark, that initial inspiration into very coordinated action.
Well, for me, it was the leadership of DK. I mean, he basically brought us together, and he started a think tank. And in that think tank, it just gave us all like-minded coaches who are all African-American coaches who dealt with situation of George Floyd in our life at some point in time. You asked the question, how were we able to handle it? It really wasn't shocking to me. I wasn't shocked by it. I grew up in the South. I wasn't shocked by it. I think, just processing it with my family because of the whole COVID situation. And it's kind of what's going on in America. You having a disease that is attacking our lungs, in which, we're struggling to breathe. And unfortunately, that's that same disease that attacks African Americans on a daily basis in terms of the unfair treatment that's going on in our neighborhoods and communities, is that, you're choking our ability to breathe and make economic process. So when DK started this think tank, along with Cal and along with Kamani, they began to see the passion of different members, and quickly we began to take action. One of the things I first remember was Cal saying, I do not want this to be just talk. I want this to be action. That was the first thing that he said. And I said, like-minded, I said, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I can't tell you how many times over this process I was asked about releasing a statement from our school, my own personal school. Of course, they contacted me and Coach Cooley. I just don't want to be a statement. My wife runs an organization as well, business, and they asked her to release a statement. We just didn't want to be about a statement. So I wasn't going to allow that to happen to our group. And Kamani and Kyle, and along with DK, they made it purposeful that we were going to take action. And immediately we got organized. And immediately we all jumped in on roles and our expertise. And we formulated a mission statement. And the one thing that came out in the central theme was action. And, we're all rivals, but at the end of the day, we're all coaches for action. And that's what we came together as. We're rivals, but, we have something bigger and stronger that's going on in our community. And we decided to take action. And that's where those initiatives started.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Kyle and Kamani, I want to give you guys a chance to address kind of those initial impressions that you guys had in the hours after, and then we're certainly gonna come back and discuss a number of the things that Ivan said right there. But first, Kyle and Kamani, if you want to interject with how it all began for you.
Yeah, for me, it started with total disbelief. Right. I lived in Minneapolis for 5 years.
Right.
That was home for my children. That was home for me. I would never imagine something like that happening in a place that I enjoyed living in, for 5 years. So when it happened, again, you lean on the people that's most, that's closest to you. DK being a close friend, as well as Kyle, just putting our thoughts together and trying to figure out a way that we can be a voice for ourselves, our families, and for our players, because we knew how frustrated, confused, and disappointed everyone was. But on that initial call, Ivan's passion and his experience growing up in the South just really jumped off the page to us. And we knew he was someone that could give us some direction and give us another perspective. Because I grew up in New York City, so did Kyle, and DK grew up in New England. So our experiences don't mirror those experiences of people growing up in the South. But to have all three perspectives in one room, and then you add the collective group of all the minority assistant coaches, we knew we were on to something special.
Right. Kyle?
Yeah, these guys did a great job of summing that up. But for me, after just watching what happened and just knowing where we were, just where our country was, I can't even put into words how many different emotions I had. Fear, anger, confusion. But if I'm really being honest, I think one of the biggest emotions I had was guilt. And guilty just because that, if I was being honest with myself, I hadn't personally done enough, or hadn't really done what things I feel like I could be doing to help. And I felt that even before Dwayne called us and kind of really brought us to action. But after he brought us to action, I thought that was something that has kind of led me personally, is just wanting to do something. And I think that these guys that you see here and the other guys have done a really good job of coming together and putting our egos aside and trying to do something.
So that word action is obviously the key here, because in the first couple of weeks, there was a lot of talk about dialogue. There was a lot of talk about listening. And I think all of that is obviously hugely important, but it can't end there. And you guys and what you're organizing have made it very clear that for you, it's not going to end there. The name of your coalition says very plainly, Coaches for Action. The press release you issued today seems to start to lay out that agenda. So without addressing this to any one of you in particular, what are the primary objectives of this coalition?
Yeah, I'll start with the first one. For us, is it raising awareness for voting? Absolutely. But we want to take it a step further. We want our players to understand what it means to vote on a local and a national level. Now, obviously, what that means in the state of Connecticut versus the state of Pennsylvania versus the state of Wisconsin, it's all very different, right? So we have to educate our guys with being sensitive to where they are and have an understanding of what it means to vote in Milwaukee and how that vote is going to be very different when certain things are going on in the climate here. But the national vote obviously is what's going to take precedence. I think the second thing is we wanted to use our social currency to have an impact in our communities. I mean, as college coaches, your reach is beyond anybody's imagination when you think about donors. When you think about people in your community, your players, your former players, the coaches, the fans that come around your programs. There's so many things you can do. And to Kyle's point, I think was terrific. We all feel guilty because we don't do enough with that. I mean, you can't just show up and play basketball games. We need to impact people and have a lasting impact on that. So I think one of our second big initiatives that we're going to roll out more details on is creating something that has an opportunity to create an avenue for people to be educated and has a lasting impact far beyond our days at our institutions that we represent, right now. I think that's something that we have dear to our heart. And then obviously the third one is the one piece, that I think has gotten so much attention today. And obviously we wanted to insert ourselves into this conversation and make people alert and aware of what we're trying to do as a group. Like we're locking arms together and we're trying to move our passion, our energy forward with something that's going to be, represented every time we play and compete for not only us, but for our players. It gives them a voice. Kamani, I know you can talk about that as you've kind of led that charge, for our group.
Yeah, man. Like we felt like with the patch, that was we were bringing our players to life. Like
patch, because I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to make people understand. Everybody in the Big East, is this true? Is going to wear a Black Lives Matter patch on their jersey, or is that what you're requesting?
This is what we brought to the table. We requested that. All Big East members, we put a Black Lives Matter patch on our jerseys, both home and away. Our goal is to have, not only men's basketball, but women's basketball. It should ultimately get to, all sports at our institutions. But we all felt like that was a way we can give our players a voice, right? Because they don't know what to do. And they're young and they're impressionable and they see what's going on. And they're disappointed as well. So we felt like by, bringing something to the table that we can do together, unified, and all be on the same page was helpful for them. And that's where that idea really came from.
And now, once you guys have your calls and establish your priorities and kind of lay out your time frame, then there becomes a series of conversations, I would imagine, that goes back to your respective schools. And I'm sure that has to happen with athletic directors and head coaches. And so, like, Kyle, what does that look like when you go into Coach Wright's office? And I mean, does he know you're doing this, or is this like, how do those conversations go with your head coach, your athletic director?
Well, first thing, there's no office right now. But calling, Coach and I have had many conversations on this topic. So I already knew that he would be behind us. It was seamless for me, just kind of alerting him of what we were doing. He immediately said that he was willing to do anything he could possibly do to help. Just gave me a bunch of advice as well. And Mark Jackson, our athletic director, was similar. He was 100% behind us. So, for something that's, could be a touchy subject, I think that they were 100% welcoming and behind us. And I think that in talking to some of these guys and our other members, I think that was pretty much the reaction throughout the week.
Was there anybody who had any uncomfortable dialogue? Because I think even when you're on the same page, sometimes, I know in the interviews I've done, I've admitted this. Sometimes, you know, I can be clumsy because I want to articulate things the right way. So did anybody? I know Bob Driscoll, Ivan. He was super supportive right off the bat. I saw his statement.
Yeah, he was. He just opened a dialogue. I mean, you know, Bob called me after George Floyd, and to be honest, you have to be. You don't have to be black or white. You just have to be human to disagree with what's going on. That's it.
Right.
You just have to be human. You just have to have a heartbeat. That's it. To disagree when you have a few who decide to treat minorities unfair and unequal. But to be honest, we had an opportunity to speak to all members of the school, all ADs, and every one of our ADs were on the call when we expressed the initiatives that the group wanted to present. And so we have to commend our league. We have to commend our athletic directors for supporting us. And each one of them, after we presented it to them as a whole, I had the opportunity to do that. They all commended each of these members for taking an initiative, for stepping up and giving not only our players, our coaches, but the league itself a voice and going in the right direction. So we do have the support of our athletic directors in terms of our initiatives and that we want to present, because all of our initiatives talk about change and action. And that's just what we are about.
And now you
Adam,
mentioned the
Adam,
yeah.
Can I say something real quick? You
Yeah.
know, our athletic director, Bill Scholl, I thought he was tremendous when we brought it to him, Justin Gainey and I from our staff. But I thought one of the things he mentioned was, you know, the world right now needs more leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we need more leadership, not only at a big level, right, in Washington, D.C., we need it in our communities. And what we're doing right now, the 21 of us, we're having real life on the job leadership training. I mean, going into to the AD's office or head coach's office, or as Kyle said, with Zoom or a phone call, it's not talking about ball screen defense or recruiting a player. You're talking about impacting lives and doing something that gives us a chance to have a voice. And I think additionally, with what's happening right now in society, the conversation has shifted. You know, now you have an athletic director, or you have somebody in your community, or you have a neighbor, or you have your boss coming to you saying, how do we deal with this issue? You know, we had a player, Kobe McEwen here at Marquette, who's spoken out about everything that's going on. He's done it at such a great level, and it's been awesome to watch him grow. So now the fact that we have a chance to hold the conversation, we take that dear to our heart, and we want to carry that baton, but we also want to represent ourselves, and we want to have a chance to be leaders. And I think what we're doing collectively, we're locking arms for not only to create change in our communities and our programs and all the people we touch, but we're also trying to impact ourselves. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. I think everybody on these calls, they're talking, but they became frustrated because they didn't know what to do, but we figured it out together. And I think that's the biggest thing, you know, as we talked about earlier, you know, our business teaches us to compete, to not necessarily communicate with each other. But now all of a sudden we're on a call, we're working together, we're talking, we're laughing. We're so motivated together to do more things. And I mean, you have 21 guys from all different walks of life, super intelligent guys, great at their jobs, have been in different disciplines, have been professional basketball players. And now all of a sudden they're doing this. And the guys that become proudest are our families and our players.
Now,
I'm sorry. I would also add that as coaches, you know, we're on a huge platform, right? And we have, you know, we have an obligation and a responsibility to not only be great coaches and you know, maximize our players' potential as you know, their athletic potential, but we have a responsibility to maximize them as young men, right? And maximize their potential as young men. And in a lot of instances, they're young Black men. All right. So when we see these injustices going on in our country and around the world, like we have an obligation to fight against it, right? And arm them with the education and with the confidence to go out there and be a part of that fight as well.
Now, there are some pragmatic realities, though, in that right now, like Kyle said, nobody's in the office. There are no games being played. There's no recruiting. You know, in a few months, hopefully, in a few months, you guys are going to be playing a game. One of your bosses is going to be screaming at the other one's boss. You know, your boss is going to be upset with you because somebody else on this call got the recruit that you were supposed to get. So it's this theme of competition And that's ironic because I know you guys are friends off the floor, but externally the perception is, and probably rightfully so, that professionally you guys are competing in almost every aspect of your job, on the recruiting trail, in between the lines, when it comes to the actual games. But so what has it been like to collaborate, not just personally, because as I said, I know you guys do that, but professionally, and how are you going to maintain that when the season starts back up? Because I thought Cuonzo Martin made a great point to me the other day. He said that in his mind, coronavirus, for as tragic as it is, and I'm paraphrasing here, it has provided the pause that has allowed the country to give this the attention that it deserves. So, if when this period of time ends or we get back to some semblance of new normal and the competitive aspect of your jobs comes to the forefront again, how does this continue to move forward?
I'll take that one because again, immediately on this call, this brain trust, this think tank that DK created, Kamani said, I want it sustainable. Cal said, I wanted it. Kamani said sustainable. And in his words, he meant just that. When we go back to everyday living, when we go back to playing and competing, when we go back to, the routine of life, we still want to have a voice of what's going on in our country every day. And Coach Martin is right. Maybe the pause of COVID did make us wake up and realize, but for me, I'll tell you, it was nothing new. I see this every day in the South. It just happened to be caught on video. And so it was important when I heard these words from Cal, from DK, from Kamani of sustainable, my mind started turning just like the other 21 members, and how can we make it sustainable? So that's why we have several initiatives that will make it sustainable, and that there are going to be other press releases of things that we're going to do. Trust me, this will be sustainable because that was the mission, that it will be sustained, that we're not just lip service, we're just not just talking when we go back to normal. Yes, we're going to become competitors, we're going to become rivals, but at the end of the day, we were all 21 Black men on this phone call that have all faced those same injustices on some level, and that we recruit these athletes, which 75% of our league is minority, that we must have a voice, a continued sustainable voice for them in terms of educating them, in terms of preparing them for the next level after basketball. And so they look up to us. I can tell you, when I'm speaking to my players, they want a voice to stand up for them over these issues. And they're very appreciative. I got texts from them. I got tons of texts from my administrators saying that I'm proud of you. I love what you guys are doing. But the biggest text that I got was from my players on Twitter that says, appreciate you, coach. Thank you, coach. We looking forward to this, coach. Appreciate you, man. And that's who I represent. That's who I stand for. Those guys. I mean, at the end of the day, they are me. I am them. And so that's the eyes that the 21 coaches were kind of coming from.
And Adam, I think the other thing I'll add, just, what we also plan to do, we have a job to do, right? We have to recruit players. We have to win games. We have to help run our programs. We're going to be setting up some committees and also bringing some other individuals to come in and be a part of our group to help steer us in the right direction when our focus shifts to competition, obviously, and into the season. We are in that pause moment right now in life with COVID, but pretty soon we're all going back to campuses, and we obviously have a job to do. This is something that we're committed to, and we're going to make sure it's successful and impactful. But we also have already engaged in the right conversations and with the right individuals that can carry out our mission, lockstep of what we're trying to do and what we started with this group representing these 21 individuals from our league.
Yeah, let's be clear, Adam. What we've started, Coaches for Action, is not closed to the 21 members.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, that was going to be my question. Yep.
It's not closed to minority assistants. It's not closed to men's basketball. Like, we just wanted to get this conversation started. We wanted to get organized. We wanted to create a platform for ourselves, for our players. And now it's an open door. Right. And
if people do want to join, if it's a women's basketball coach or a white assistant coach or a lacrosse coach, I mean, are you guys open to that? And how would they go about doing that?
if you look at the name, Adam, it's Coaches for Action,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's Coaches for Action. Now, we've started it. Again, we've started the conversation. We've set the table, but absolutely, absolutely. I've gotten texts and Twitter, and tweets today. Hey, we stand with you. We want to be a part of it. How can we help? That's the joy in it.
So what's the answer to that? If there are coaches watching or listening right now, how do they get involved if they would like to participate?
Yeah, I think the first step for us is to get the foundation off and to get our initiatives going. I think there's two things that we have to get done first where we can bring more people in, but we're setting that up as we speak. And I think now that we have our word out, our mission out, and now the people are motivated to become part of us, our next step then is to be more inclusive and bring people and grow our group to be more impactful. Because at the end of the day, as coaches, we all agree to impact kids' lives, to make their life better, to get new experiences for them, to give them and build bridges for them to be able to become better versions of themselves as athletes, as people, as students. So we're obligated to get this done. And we only want to spread that reach, no matter if it's a basketball player or a lacrosse athlete. Those things are really important.
I thought that there was somebody else going to add something there.
Oh, well, the DK covered it.
Okay.
And like you said, he covered it. We're currently getting our initiatives together and setting foundations. And one of the things where we're doing with we're in contact with the women's coaches in the Big East as well. I'm bringing them on. And then once we get our initiatives and the foundation and certain things set up, we're more than welcome to take other people on.
So now, Coach Thomas, you mentioned this, but I'm curious, like, what was today like for you guys? I'm sure everybody's, social media and texts were blowing up, but did you get the response you were expecting today? Because I think what is truly unique about this, you touched on your membership, but to have every single minority assistant coach in your league from men's basketball represented, to have that just one unified voice is something totally unique. And there's a lot of people in this industry right now who are trying to do good, but what you guys have been able to do has been unique thus far. And now the fact that you're opening it up for other people to join is only going to add more momentum to it. So what has today been like for each of you? Kyle, go ahead.
You want to start? Yeah, Kyle, you start out.
Yeah, well, I was joking with Coach earlier, Coach Wright earlier. We talked maybe an hour and a half ago that I felt like him for a day, kind of taking a bunch of calls and kind of on a media campaign almost. So that's what day was like for me anyway. But it was really cool to kind of go through it. And then also to see the overwhelming support from, friends, loved ones, people in the business, and seeing it. I really feeling fortunate that a lot of other people shared my thoughts and interests.
Kamani?
Yeah, it started for me last night, being on a call with those guys, with all 21 members, all of us on a Zoom, introduced in our mission statement, our press release, our plans of action, our website. It was just encouraging, right? It was encouraging because we knew it was the product of everyone's hard work, everybody's commitment, and everybody's voice, right? So to just kind of see it all come to fruition this morning was exciting. It was impactful, and it was motivating. We knew that we were just getting going today, but there's tons of work to be done.
Gotcha. Guys, you've already alluded to some of the things that's going to come next in terms of the growth of your organization and some of the plans, but what is coming next? Because obviously this is just day one. Press release comes out. I'm sure you're going to have media commitments throughout to the rest of the week, but at some point, I'm sure next steps become the priority. So what are the action items if you're able to speak about them?
Yeah, Stu Jackson, first of all, he commended all of us for our hard work and what we're trying to do. And I think we all admire Stu. He's been
outspoken. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been outspoken, but he's also he's walked the path that we're walking, right? Like he's done the job that we're doing, which is really important. And we reached out to him before we got started to let him know what we were thinking. The next step is to get with our league office and figure out how to bring, in reality, our dreams to reality, right? And there's a lot of moving pieces with all that. And I think additionally, something that Coach Young, brought to the table that we're also going to do is, it's important. We're also talking about representing our players, right? And doing a lot of this motivating behind our players, but we're also going to create player reps to make sure that our players have an opportunity to have a voice and to be able to talk about what the issues are that they're dealing with on the campuses or just as a college athlete, right? And then we can help them carry out their messages, or maybe they have some goals that they want to get done that we can help them. Our group can help them do that collectively. So those are some of the things. And I think a lot of it starts with, honestly, our guys getting back to campus. I mean, there's some moving pieces on each institution that we have to deal with first. But I think the next step is bringing the league in and having real conversations with them about what our next step would be, again, to make this all real. But again, like Kamani said, I think we're so proud of what we've been able to get accomplished. People have literally saluted us for the look and the feel of how we've done it. I think we've took great pride in being professional about it, engaging with people like yourself in the social media, landscape as well, to make sure that our message is carried out, but then also everybody has a voice. We're encouraging all of our guys to get out there and tell the story of what we're trying to do, but also, when we started this call, you asked, what was it like when everything happened in society? Well, that's important that everybody else gets a chance to tell their story as well. So those are things that we're trying to motivate and create platforms for everybody involved.
Yeah, literally, Adam, today has been the result of 21 people, for the last 3 weeks, putting their thoughts together, being shoulder to shoulder, lock and step, and coming up with what we were able to be, viewed as today. Right. There's been a ton of people behind the scenes that help us build our website, help us build our talking points, help us, create our Twitter account. So, this is, we're just getting started, but there's tons of people that have been a part of us getting to where we are today.
Absolutely. And, we are planning to launch a foundation that support other initiatives that we're planning to do to help, as DK said, underserved communities. And we also going to fight for all of these initiatives. One was Kamani's voting awareness. We plan to be active in doing those things once, as DK said, our kids get back to campus. So this is what we mean by sustainable. These are initiatives that we plan to move forward on. But our first initiative is that patch. In terms of our first initiative of action is the patch to give our players a voice, to not only show their support, but also use their voice and their platform as players to let the world know what's going on.
Yeah. And Adam, when we talk about the voting initiative, I think it's important for us to share that not only do we want to get our young players, our student athletes, and even young students in general voting and registered to vote, but we want to educate them on what that really means. Mm-hmm. Right? Absolutely. What does it really mean? When you talk about voting, everybody in the country, especially young people, I'm voting for the president. Right. That's the only election that truly matters to people in a lot of people's mind, especially in underserved communities and communities of color. So our job is to not only educate them about, registering to vote, but now what are you voting for? What policies, truly impact you, your lives, the lives of the people that are close to you. And I think that is where we can see some significant change.
And I would assume that also means, where do they go to find that information? I'm sure there are skeptics listening saying the coaches are going to tell them how to vote. And that's not what you're saying at all. I'm sure what you're saying is trying to educate these kids about how they become informed enough to utilize their vote to the best of their ability.
Absolutely. And that counts for us as well. Right.
That's all of us. Yeah.
All of us, coaches, as parents, we all need to get better that way.
That was one of the dialogues that we had when we started talking. We actually, held ourselves accountable. Typically the election is November. That's the heat of our season. How much are we paying attention to it? Well, you know what? Maybe we need to pause a little bit more, and we all need to pay attention to it a little bit more. We all need to become informed. And so this is just not about our players. We held ourselves accountable to some of the change that we need to see happen as well. We understand, like, November, we're all hustling, bustling, trying to get the edge, but we need to pause and figure out, how can we get an edge on our country? How can we help our country become better people and overall better society?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Adam, we all have a role to play.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a role to play. Once we all sat there and watched George Floyd murdered that way on camera, on television, like that, and Ivan made the best point. You just have to be human to say that that's not right.
Without question. Yeah.
Like, you just have to be human. And if you watch that video and didn't realize at some level you have a role to play in creating change, then something is wrong with you. And that goes for all of us: student athletes, coaches, administrators, doctors, lawyers, journalists. Like, we all have a role to play to create change.
And I've said this in past episodes, because of George Floyd's murder, people are almost forgetting about Amy Cooper and how disgusting that sequence was. And that was on the same weekend. I just wrote about this, but I remember waking up Tuesday morning, not being on social media on Monday morning, and that's all you see in the timeline is George Floyd, Amy Cooper, and you're like, what the hell is the matter with people? And it's just so, as I said, I commend you guys all for taking such steps for collaboration and for action. This is now the 6th podcast we've done on social justice, racial injustice in this country. And the question that I like to ask, because I want to be cognizant of the fact that I don't always know the questions to ask. So the last question I have for all of you is very simply, what haven't I asked? What have I missed? Is there a lasting message, whether it's about Coaches for Action or larger themes in general that you'd like to address? Perhaps not. Perhaps we've already covered everything, but I don't want to assume that I did. Guys, I want to give you that open forum.
Let me speak to that, right? And this has been not an argument, but a topic of discussion that we've had in this group, that I've had with people outside of this group, people on an everyday basis, right? Everyone wants to know, what can they do?
Yes.
Right. And for the most part, it's been, white people reaching out to us saying, what should they be doing? All right. Mm-hmm. I don't have the answer to that question. Right. There's so many things for us to do. Do something. Right. Do something. Like, if there's an issue going on in our world, there's tons of issues that we try to overcome every day. And you don't call someone to ask what should I be doing? Right. You think of something that grabs your attention, right? And you get after it. And I think that's what we're going through now. Like, there's been so many instances, right, of police brutality, social injustices, right? Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. Like, there's been like small little battles.
Look at what happened at NASCAR over the weekend. I mean, this, it just...
Absolutely. But I feel like the George Floyd death is the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Do something. I don't have the answers to that. I can't tell you what to do, right? I can't tell you how to feel. But again, if you're a human being and you see young Black men unarmed being murdered at the hands of police, like that's a problem. Right. When you see, right, there's not, enough Black head coaches, that's a problem. There's not enough Black ADs. There's not enough people policing the communities where they're from. Right. These are all different issues that we can overcome, collectively. Right. But you got to start somewhere. And I think that's what we're doing with Coaches for Action.
Adam, can I add?
Yeah, I'd like to give you all an opportunity to answer that.
I'll just say one thing, Adam. I think something that can be done is things like this, just giving people a forum to have these type of conversations, and to have these type of conversations with people of different races. I think is very impactful. Just knowing both sides, just hearing other people talk about it. Things like this, I think, are impactful.
Yeah, and I'll just add, there's somebody asked me, like, what are the challenges you're going through? And there's a Procter and Gamble ad. It's called The Look. It's amazing. It's probably the best 2 minutes you can invest if you don't have a full understanding. It's called Procter and Gamble, The Look. It's an ad by them. You can find it on YouTube, and it gives you a perspective of what it's like being Black and being misread. It's basically like, you know, the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. But I say that to say, see that, process it, think about it, and then talk about it. I think the conversations that we're having right now, like Kyle just said, are so important. Have them over and over and over again, and start to have an understanding for what people are going through in the world. There's growth in that. But the challenge I have for everybody in my neighborhood, everybody listening to this, everybody in all these programs that we represent, everybody that's going to become a part of CFA, think about this. Don't stop now, right? I'm sorry, don't stop in 2 months, in 3 months, right? People are having conversations right now in their living rooms, on their porch. But when it gets to December, issues are still going to exist. When it gets a year from now, they're still going to exist. We have to keep going, keep trying to change people and impact people and make people aware, make people think, make people process what they're doing in their lives, and just the people that are around them. I mean, there's an amazing group of people that we've put together that half of them I didn't even know. And I walked away from them with more respect than I ever had from before we got on the call. Well, that's still going on in society with white and Black people and people in neighborhoods and people at schools and businesses. So it's important to be aware, have conversations, and educate yourself. But don't stop now. Keep going and learn and grow as much as you can.
Yeah. I mean, Adam, I'm more with you with the Amy Cooper thing, and I'll let it sum it up. It bothered me actually more than Floyd.
Yeah.
And here's why. I mean, like I told you guys, I grew up in the South, so it was nothing to see that officer on his neck. You know, it just happened to be filmed, and you know, this day and age with social media. And but Amy Cooper, it bothered me, and I had to process why. And here's why. Amy Cooper it's about 40 years old. She was born in 1980, basically. She's an educated woman. She knew the power in which she had over an African-American man, or presumed to have. She understood the fear that we have with authorities in certain areas. In Central Park, where she was, she understood the relationship of the minority inferiority to police over the generations, over the years, and she used it to her benefit, to her privilege. So when you constantly say you did not know, don't understand, it makes me confirm that this country has a long way to go, because you do know and you do understand. And because life was moving at a fast pace, we chose to ignore it. And now that it's slowed down, we're bringing it to the forefront. So it's like DK said, we have to bring awareness to this constantly, because people do know what's going on. And it's like Kamani said, we have to do something. You know what's going on, do something. You know exactly what's going on, do something. And that is what the mission of our group is. Not just because we're 21 African-American assistant coaches, but all people, do something. Do something continually, even when COVID is far past, even when you see us competing against each other in November, even when all this subsides, remember, do something.
Well, guys, thank you very much for that message, for your work, for your leadership. For people who are watching tonight, I hope that you respect and admire these men as much as I do. And this will be available on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and all the places we get our podcasts. And commend you guys and look forward to your continued leadership on this subject and the example that you've set. Really, I mean this sincerely, for not just college basketball, but for other leagues across the country. You guys really did set the bar in that way. So thank you to you four for being here tonight and for all that you've done.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.